Mary says, "Hi, Raf, I'm loving AMA. I found it so interesting and look forward to it every week." Well, I'm really happy to hear that, Mary. Thank you. Thank you for being so generous with your time. My pleasure. My question is about lateral pelvic tilt. What causes it and how do I fix it? I would say I have a few questions for you which are kind of rhetorical and kind of also for you to answer for your own self. Well, the first question is like, well, why do you want to fix it? All right, no. Let me back up and ask a previous question. How do you know you've got lateral pelvic tilt? Because there are, if you've been told by somebody who, stuck their fingers on your bony landmarks in your pelvis, like your iliac crests or your ASIS, your anterior superior iliac spine, the bony bump in the front of your pelvis, or your PSIS, your posterior superior iliac spine, the bony bump at the back of your pelvis next to your sacrum. If they palpated, which means to just touch those body parts and then kind of squinted at eye level and said, "Oh yeah, I think your left's a bit higher than your right," or vice versa, then they were probably wrong. And there are several reasons that I say that. The first one is that pelvises are not symmetrical. So in just the same way as when you go and get yourself measured for a pair of shoes, it's very, very likely that one foot is larger than the other. And almost everybody is slightly asymmetrical in every body part. So it is with our pelvises. So there's one particular study where they got a bunch of pelvises from cadavers, people who donated their bodies to science, and they stuck these pelvises in a special jig, which is just basically a set of clamps that clamp it in a very specific position. And then they measured the relative height of all of these bony landmarks, the ASIS, the PSIS, the height of the iliac crest, the pubic symphysis, etc. And what they found was there's about a plus or minus 11 millimetres in most of those in terms of height from side to side. So if your ASIS is 11 millimetres higher on one side, that doesn't necessarily mean your pelvis is tilted. It might just mean that your actual ASIS is 11 millimetres higher and your pelvis could be perfectly level. So that's one thing. So there's a bunch of studies showing that pelvises are, and all other body parts, are in fact not perfectly symmetrical. So if we made you line up your ASISs so they were perfectly in line, that might cause you to be in a laterally tilted pelvic position. The second thing is that it is highly unreliable to palpate these bony landmarks and determine where they are. So there's a bunch of research looking at trained physiotherapists, so very experienced physiotherapists, 20 years average experience, all palpating, certain bony landmarks in the spine or pelvis, and basically wildly disagreeing about the location. So they'll all be like, "Oh, I've found the right L4 transverse process," or whatever. "I found it. It's here. No, it's here. No, it's here." So they basically can't agree on that with, obviously none of them think it's on the shoulder. They all, very fairly close to each other, but like they might be out by a centimetre or so. So if you think like, okay, trained physiotherapists who do this for a living and are very confident that they're doing it correctly can be plus or minus a centimetre with their palpation. And then we stack on top of that the fact that the actual bony landmarks vary in their position by plus or minus a centimetre. Well, you can be out 2 centimetres in either direction. So there's a 4 centimetre variation there in the normal pain-free population. So, just because someone looked at you or palpated your bony landmarks and said, "Oh, your XYZ is lower or higher than your other side," it's very unlikely that they're correct. So that's number one. How do you know you've got a pelvic tilt? You probably don't, unless you've had an X-ray or a CT, which has been measured, not just eyeballed by somebody. And second question, okay, just say you do know you've got a pelvic tilt. Well, how do you know it's causing a problem? Is it causing a problem? Do you have back pain? Do you have hip pain? Do you have sacroiliac joint pain? And if you have back pain or hip pain or sacroiliac joint pain and you have a pelvic tilt, well, how do you know that the pelvic tilt is causing the back pain or the hip pain or sacroiliac joint pain? because the assumption that it's causing that pain is not necessarily the most likely explanation. And that has been shown again by, for example, the movement system impairment research that I mentioned just in the last question or the previous question before that when we correct these asymmetries, the pain doesn't get better any more than when we just do general exercise. So there's something about exercising that helps pain, but whether we change specific things or not doesn't seem to be important in terms of alleviating pain, disability for people with low back pain and sacroiliac pain and whatever. So how do you know you've got a lateral pelvic tilt? You probably don't know that, even if you've been told it with a great degree of confidence by somebody who should know. They probably don't know. Second, if you've got it, how do you know it's causing a problem? Do you have pain? If you don't have pain, it's not causing a problem. If you do have pain and you've got a pelvic tilt, how do you know the pelvic tilt's causing the pain? And the answer is you can't know that. And the reason you can't know that is because pain is multifactorial and complex and is basically generally not possible to distill it down to a simple, A caused B. When it comes to pain, it's highly complex and not well understood. But what we do understand about pain is enough to say that it's generally multifactorial. If you have pain, if you have low back pain, if you have hip pain, if you have sacroiliac joint pain, the things that I would recommend are don't worry about your pelvic tilt. Do some general exercise, strengthen whole body, stretch whole body. Doesn't matter what exercise you do, just do something you enjoy. Get enough sleep, get 8 to 9 hours a day sleep. The best way to get more sleep is to spend more time in bed. Spend more time in bed, you're likely to spend some of that time asleep. Manage your stress, remove yourself from stressful situations or do things to manage your stress. Meditate, go for a walk in nature, have a glass of wine with your loved one. Do some exercise. Empower yourself with some fearlessness about movement, and I'm trying to do that. I'm trying my best to help you with that right now by trying to help you understand that it's extremely unlikely that there's any problem with your pelvis. Your pelvis is probably awesome and perfectly fine and works perfectly, and that the problem if you have pain, and if you don't have pain, hey, happy days, just walk away, don't worry about it. But if you do have pain, it's probably more to do with a sensitized nervous system and an oversensitive pain system rather than it is to do with a dysfunction in your pelvic geometry. Asterisk, if you have pain and you recently had a fall, well, yeah, that might be related. You might have some bruising or whatever. But, from the sounds of what you've written, that doesn't sound like it's the case. So I hope that helps. Get moving, check if you're getting enough sleep, manage your stress, and try not to worry about it.